Alright, now we're going to talk about how to continue down into our midground and foreground with our oil pastels. Now the main thing that we want to always keep in mind is to work with those value changes like we did with the sky. I encourage you to find all of the like colors, whether that is when you're working on the mountains or the grass. Try to find as many similar colors as you can. So for instance, let's say I'm going to work on this mountain here. I might start first with some gray. I'll zoom in real quick, kind of down here a little bit more. And I might just kind of put a few little gray lines. Now I'm not too worried about covering up some of my little details, like for instance these little trees over here, I first just colored right over them and then I went back with the oil pastels later. So I'll probably do the same thing with these buildings here too. Sometimes if you try too hard to just go around something, you end up leaving like a little white kind of ring around it, and that kind of stops your eye from seeing the whole picture smoothly. So now I'm just going to a brown and I'm adding a few little lines too. You know, mountains have a lot of grays, browns, whites, and blacks in them. So I'm going to even take a little bit of black and I'm going to just put a few little lines. This will kind of help create some little shadows in my mountain. So again, I'm not pushing very hard, I'm just getting a kind of collection of colors on there. And then like I did in the sky, I'll just lightly kind of mix them together. Lightly blend them together by going over it with my finger. And then I told you this with the sky, that you may need to go back and add another layer to it. So kind of same thing with the mountain and the grass. I now kind of filled in the majority of those white spaces, but now maybe I'll come back in with maybe a little bit of gray or more of the black or brown, just to put a couple more little lines in it. Okay, so maybe like that, and then I'll lightly blend them together one more time. There, that just kind of gives it a rougher texture for my mountain. Now, one thing, our goal is just to kind of have some variety as we work our way down. One good way to really help to show some space in our work is to change not only the kind of brightness of the color, but also the textures that we're working with. So you'll notice my first kind of area of grass is a lot lighter than my next few layers. So as I come closer to the bottom of my paper, my colors should be darker to kind of help show that these hills are further away. You'll notice too, this one was just kind of lightly kind of blended in. I don't see many textures to it, but as I come down towards the bottom of my paper, I can now see these darker lines, creating some maybe grass or field type textures. And down here too, you can see I left it very rough because this is my closest hill. So let's kind of do that over here a little bit too. So I started with my lighter green, and I just kind of very, very lightly colored it in again. Kind of like how you saw me do with the mountains. I just put a little bit of color on first. Again, not worrying about coloring over this tree because I'll add that later. And then I just kind of lightly filled it in, like so. So for your very far kind of grassy hills, you could even just do one color like that, just to fill it in. And again, my goal is just to make each layer look a little bit different. So I might start this next one the same way by coloring it in all with this lighter green. I'll just do a little tiny piece of it. But then I might go back in with the next green. So this would be my next lightest green. And maybe then I add a few lines. Now I want you to always be thinking about like the lay of the land, so to speak. So we're not just going side to side. I'm pretending that this is a hill coming down to the side. So these lines are helping to show that. And then I can go over them a little bit to blend them together a little more. But notice how different that texture is compared to this. Not only is it going in a different direction than the way I blended this one, but now I have these slightly darker green lines too, giving it a different look and feel. And then when I was at the very bottom here, I just kind of picked and choose some spots for these colors. So I put a little bit of light green here, and a little bit of the next green here, and then I went to my darkest green and put in some colors. You could even mix in a little bit of yellow if you wanted to. And then this, I just once again lightly smeared them together, trying to keep these colors separate from one another. This really helps show some maybe shadows in the grasses, giving it a really cool texture, which really helps separate it from these hills that are further away from us. So take it one step at a time, but work with as many different colors as you can. You can see with my pumpkin here, I used all of the oranges I could find, and I even came back with a little bit of white to create some highlights. Now, if I was doing trees like here, same kind of thing. Maybe start with your darkest green. Do a few little wavy lines. But I always like to try to add at least one more. So I could leave it like that, but I could maybe take a black, put a few little lines just to help give it more texture, or maybe a little bit of brown in there too. It's all about working with those value changes and layers. So there you have it. Just kind of keep working one step at a time and mix as many different colors together as you can, trying to get as many different types of textures and values.